My name is Hayden Christie. I'm a sports nutritionist that coaches rugby athletes, and welcome to this video on how I helped Wil Patison build an elite diet in my ProFuel coaching program. Wil is a first grade rugby league player that plays for the Shellharbour Sharks. He was training around 5 times per week plus a game each weekend and also balancing full-time work. Wil had some general ideas around his nutrition, but had never received personalised advice. Some key objectives that Wil wanted to achieve from working with myself included learning how to add lean mass during a season without sacrificing fitness and speed, implementing a streamlined, repeatable meal prep routine that fit into his busy schedule, building his nutritional knowledge so he can confidently manage his own fueling needs long after coaching ends, establishing a structured, reliable eating strategy for game days to optimize performance and recovery, and having external accountability to ensure he stays disciplined and focused, especially through the weekends. With any athlete I work with, I coach him in a series of 3 phases: a foundation phase, a precision phase, and an optimization phase. The foundation phase is where we master the basics, the precision phase is where we focused on more advanced performance nutrition, and an optimization phase is where we focus on the smaller details of an athlete's diet. The reason why I coach in phases is that it ensures we get the most important parts of a rugby athlete's diet correct before moving on to the smaller details. I found that by working through phases, we are able to create dietary change which is a lot more sustainable, as you aren't overloaded with information and too many things to work on at once. I've found that this goes a long way to preventing overwhelm and reducing confusion during the coaching process. The first phase of the program is the foundation phase, where we focus on mastering the basics of a rugby athlete's diet. For Wil, the key focuses in the foundation phase were developing structure and clarity with his diet so he could put on quality weight during a season, developing a repeatable meal prep system so his diet didn't feel like a chore, was easy to organise and had some good variety, and developing knowledge around how Wil's plates should be proportioned. One of the main reasons Wil reached out to me is that when he'd tried gaining weight in the past, he'd felt super sluggish on the pitch. For this weight gain phase, he wanted a clear strategy that supported mass gain while still being able to keep his fitness and agility. Wil knew that having some carbs and protein was important, and he knew he needed to be in a surplus to gain weight. But how much carbs, how much protein, and what his surplus should actually look like, that was all a mystery. During the initial week of my program, we eliminated all the guesswork by establishing precise daily macronutrient targets and calorie targets. The primary advantage of maintaining consistent nutritional targets is the ability to make data-driven, predictable adjustments to an athlete's diet based off their changing weight and body composition. Without these clear baselines and accurate tracking, any dietary adjustments over time amounts to little more than shots in the dark. Because we took this calculated approach, Wil managed to pack on lean muscle while keeping fat gains to an absolute minimum, all while having complete certainty in his strategy. Another major focus during the foundation phase of the program is providing support with organisation and simple recipe options. For Wil, before he joined ProFuel, he was eating the same lunch every day. While having meals you can rely on is good, if you're eating the same meal week after week, things can get a bit old. Also, when you have more variety in your meals, you increase the likelihood that you meet all of your micronutrient needs. Most of the guys I work with hold down full-time jobs, meaning free time is a luxury. Providing Wil with simple recipe options and supermarket lists gave him a lot more confidence to try new meals. He didn't have to stress about the planning, he just had to grab the ingredients, cook the meals, and execute. Another key focus of the foundation phase is making sure an athlete understands how their main meal should be proportioned. During coaching, many of the athletes I work with still want to enjoy meals with friends and family. Not every meal is going to be a meal prep option that they've made themselves. This is why I give clear advice around ideal plate proportions. For Wil, a key mistake he was making was having too much protein at his meals and not enough carbohydrates. Protein is really important, but once you get past a certain point, there's no benefit of having any extra. The key change I recommended to Wil was that he had one less portion of protein and one more portion of carbohydrates at his dinner meals when he was having them with his family. Once an athlete has an understanding of how their main meal should be proportioned, they feel confident eating in a wide variety of scenarios, as they know exactly what they need, regardless of whether they've made the meal for themselves or is sharing it with others. Once the dietary foundations are firmly established, we transition into the precision phase, where the focus shifts to more advanced performance nutrition. For Wil, we focused in on dialing in his food timing, reviewing how he was recovering for his games, and understanding how his diet should be periodized across the week. Once you've built a solid foundation with an athlete's diet, optimizing timing is one of the most powerful levers we can pull to maximize an athlete's overall performance and recovery. Improving nutrition timing has an influence on an athlete's ability to recover well, and this is even more important when an athlete works in a labor-intensive job as they're putting constant stress on their bodies. This is why with every athlete I work with, I review their exact schedule on every single day. It's not good enough just to provide general recommendations around timing. I want them to have full clarity for every meal and every snack on every day. When Wil and I caught up for our Week 8 coaching call, he commented that he was shocked at how well he'd been pulling up after training. He found it amazing the lack of soreness that he was experiencing when compared to before he started coaching, and I know for certain the work we did around nutrient timing would have played a large role in this. Game day is a point of confusion for many rugby athletes, and that's something I have a massive focus on with every ProFuel client in the precision phase. Something that was of particular interest to Wil was how he was structuring his game day recovery nutrition. Where most guys are grabbing for a beer and chips, Wil wanted to have a more professional approach to his post-game recovery. I like to think of locking in your post-game recovery as getting a head start on your next training week. Immediately after the game, Wil was providing his body with what it needed, so he was turning up to training on a Monday feeling fresh. Foods like berry protein smoothies became one of the first snacks he went for right after a game. We chose these options like smoothies for their convenience, macronutrient composition, and anti-inflammatory properties. We also discussed healthy takeaway options, so when Wil did want to enjoy more of a cheat meal, he was still getting in the nutrients he needed. Another thing I like to introduce more in the precision phase, particularly when an athlete has a varied training week, is increased periodization of the diet across the week. Diet periodization is just a fancy way of saying matching your food intake to your physical output. One key factor for Wil is that he wanted more accountability and consistency over the weekends. If you get a cheat meal plan, it's going to recommend that you just eat the same food on every day. But that's not how you should be fueling, and it makes things tough when all your days look really different in terms of physical output and schedule. Wil found the consistency of his diet improved a lot when he had specific guidance for how each day should be fueled. In particular, we discussed how he could ensure quality nutrient intake over the weekend while still having flexibility for social occasions, takeaway meals, or sweet treats. The athletes I work with aren't robots. Food is a big part of their social life, and that's something I always take into account when advising what an athlete's diet should look like over the weekend. Following the precision phase, we enter the optimization phase. This is where we focus on the finer details of an athlete's diet, looking for those extra 1% gains that keep them progressing and set them up for long-term success. A major focus for the athletes I coach is building their confidence to maintain a strong nutritional base when their environment changes. Weekends away are a classic example, and these trips can often cause stress for players who worry about undoing all their hard work. When an athlete goes away, the goal isn't restriction. It's about helping them find the right balance so they can stay on track with their diet while still fully enjoying themselves. To take the guesswork out of these situations, I provide a specific list of takeaway options that align with the athlete's macronutrient needs, making it easy to make smart choices on the fly. This strategy is especially critical for athletes like Wil with really high energy expenditures. When your daily energy output is massive, missing the mark on your meals makes it incredibly easy to drop weight fast, so keeping calories up on the road is essential for maintaining performance and muscle mass. Another core focus of the optimization phase is dialing in performance supplementation. The best way to view supplements is as the icing on the cake, where the cake itself represents a rock-solid baseline diet. Once that foundation is set, strategic supplementation is a highly effective investment for capturing those extra 1% gains. By the midpoint of the season, the physical toll was starting to add up for Wil, who was often playing up to 70 minutes as a front row forward each game. To support his body through that demanding in-season stretch, we looked beyond standard options like protein powder and creatine. I recommended specific targeted supplements designed to reduce inflammation, minimize muscle soreness, and accelerate recovery between brutal matches. To make execution seamless, I don't just hand over a generic list. I provide athletes with exact brand recommendations, precise dosing protocols, and clear education on why these specific choices are the best investment for their individual needs. This level of clarity ensures players never waste money on overhyped, useless products that offer zero performance benefits. They know exactly what to take, when to take it, and how it's actively moving the needle for their game. One thing that had been a struggle for Wil in the past is that he'd been able to put on weight, but then during really heavy training phases, he would struggle to keep it on. In one of our meetings, we covered how I would adjust for periods like preseason, where his running volume went right up and his energy expenditure was even higher than that of during a season. During intense rugby league preseason phases, characterised by high volume running, heavy resistance training, and a lot of contact, athletes can actually experience reduced appetite. This is largely driven by acute physiological shifts, including the suppression of the hunger hormone ghrelin and a simultaneous spike in satiety signals. Because these demanding double sessions days drastically elevate an athlete's daily calorie requirement, this natural suppression of hunger presents a massive fueling challenge, as players must actively force themselves to consume dense volumes of nutrients despite feeling really full, leaving them highly vulnerable to underfueling, impaired recovery, and muscle loss. I wanted Wil to be prepared for this, as I didn't want him to undo all the hard work we'd put in on gaining mass, which is why I provided him with a different plan for pre-season. Overall, these are the key things we worked on with Wil's diet. The foundation phase focused on gaining complete clarity around optimal macronutrient and energy intake, developing simple meal planning systems, and knowledge on ideal plate proportions. The precision phase focused on dialing in on Wil's nutrient timing, creating post-game recovery strategies, and introducing diet periodization across the week. And lastly, the optimization phase focused on providing Wil guidance around things like weekend holidays, personalized supplement recommendations, and educating Wil on how his diet might change across a pre-season versus in-season. The success of my program relies on several key features built to support athletes at every step. While personalized meal planning underpins the entire process, athletes also get 24/7 instant messaging access, coaching calls every 4 weeks, and weekly accountability tasks to keep them moving forward. A massive complaint I hear from rugby players who have worked with other coaches is the lack of consistent communication and support. To fix that, every athlete in my program gets 24/7 instant messaging access to me so they can ask questions and get support whenever something pops up. This full-time access is incredibly valuable for players like Wil, who might need to make adjustments week to week based off things like injuries or changing schedules. Coaching calls are a cornerstone of the program. Meetings are had every 4 weeks to ensure your plan evolves alongside your training and progress, but more importantly, it's your dedicated space to tell me exactly how things are going. These sessions give you the perfect opportunity to provide direct feedback on your energy, recovery, and lifestyle, letting us dive deep into how your body is responding. From there, we can strip away the guesswork and make coordinated adjustments to your strategy, giving you complete clarity on the why behind your nutrition and ensuring everything is working perfectly for you. Alongside instant messaging access and calls, ProFuel contains a weekly accountability system. Many athletes already have a decent grasp on their diet before we start, but without consistent accountability, standards can slip when things get busy. To prevent that, I have players keep a weekly food journal where they upload photos of one full day of eating once per week. Usually we do this on a Tuesday, as this is commonly a rugby athlete's biggest training day. This full day snapshot once per week gives me a clear look at an entire day of eating, making it easy to provide exact feedback and keep you completely locked in. When I asked Wil for some feedback on the program in our calls, he said, "The program's been unreal. It's probably one of the best things I've decided to do. The extra weight achieved exactly what I'd hoped, and I've felt more dominant in contact while being just as fit. I've loved the game day nutrition, and I've been seeing the results on the field. I've learned that eating more and fueling properly was actually the key to improving body composition, and a massive improvement for me is that I've never felt sluggish or bloated for training. Overall, it's been a pleasure to work with Wil, and I'm excited to see what he achieves moving forward. If you're a rugby athlete that wants to learn more about ProFuel and how I can help you with coaching, DM me Elite on Instagram.